All right, hey everybody. We're back again for this will be attempt 2 at the Zerker hot bars and hotkeys. If you paid attention enough, I had one up, but I took it down because I'm not working off a script or anything like that. And after I uploaded it, I realized, oh crap, I missed a couple of really obvious things I should have talked about that I didn't. So if I'm going to do that here, and also since then, talking with X-Kraken, going over some Zerker stuff. I realized that I was trying to confine myself to like single hotbars per like different utilities. So specifically with the Zerker, like all their spam DPS stuff. So I was sacrificing stuff out of there, but I realized like they really need 2 bars to cover everything there, because there's more than just 12, 13 things which you could get into a single bar, being like 1 bar here set up with 12 things and then a 13th thing and like the number 2 over there. They need more than that. There's just a lot more going on with them. So what I did was I added another hotbar to it. And the reason why I hadn't done that before is these hotbars, when you go into here and you go into your keys and you change like hotbar 6 to all to number 2, this is account wide. So if I change this to this, if I have the hotbar 6 to all number 2, every single character on this account is going to have that same setting. So reason why you kind of tend to want to limit how many hotbars you're using and not just set up a hotbar for everything, because there might be other classes that need a full bar need like hotbars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, just solely dedicated to like individual kinds of things for them. So I had reserved 7 and on. So in order to set up a second bar for spam and add an additional hot bar so that I have now 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 all dedicated to stuff, I had to go through and adjust several hot bars on several characters to make sure that's like what could potentially happen, or I shouldn't say potentially did with one of my characters when I just wasn't paying attention. So like I would set up hotbar 6 to 2 and start spamming through it. And then I would log into like my cleric, but on my cleric I had like a gate and stuff in there. Like I've got at the top here like a utility bar here. So I was in the middle of the fight and hitting 2 and my cleric gates out. Because I didn't know that, I changed it on one account or one character, and it does that to all characters on that same account. So in order to set this up, you may have to do some like massive overhauling. And I try to keep it consistent on all accounts. So I just went through one day and took like several hours and just cleaned up tons of UIs and changed around and just like that, so that every single account now has hot bars 6 all the way or through 11 total hot bars here. They're all dedicated to the exact same thing. And one of the things that I also did just to help with that is, so like I've got down here the actual ones that are being used. So I've got 6 and 7 here, which are the spam 2, and then I've got the numpad here, which is dedicated to the numpad 1 through 9, burn here, and then just some utility stuff here. And the bars that I'm not using are up at the top here. So 3, which is set to like start of fight stuff, and 5, which is group heal stuff that my Zerker just doesn't have any need for it. I've got them up there so that, and it's like this on every single account, any bars that are not being used are up there and they are set to be locked, so I can't like mess around with them. But that's my reminder, like, okay, cool, let me make sure that I don't mess around and add stuff there that might mess up from another account. So like I'll pop over into my Beast Lord, like similar thing here. The Beast Lord currently just has 13 things that he needs to be spammed on a regular basis. He doesn't need anything more, so I got the 12 here, then I've got a 13th down over there. So I'm not using the second one there, but I've got it up at the top there locked out. But what he does have here is the hotbar 10, which is set to number 3. He does have some stuff that I want to click just once at the start of the fight, which is what that number 3 is. So he's got that down there, whereas on my Berzerker, at the start of the fight, the only thing that he's got that I want to click is his shared barbarism, which lasts for a decent amount for like the full length of just about any fight. So I don't necessarily need it in my spam. So I've got that just there, number 3. So he doesn't need a whole bar for it. If I find something else or want to play with something else, that bar is up there and I can start moving stuff in there to kind of test it out. But yeah, so that's what I did there. And I might have to redo my video that I did on on my hotbar setup, my current setup, because I just did that the other week and now have changed it pretty drastically across all accounts, but that's a whole nother video there. So into the actual Berzerker stuff here, because we've gone 5 minutes without getting into it. So hotbars here that I've got set up. So my main spam here. So I've got 2 bars set up here, and I've got some empty space here. And there's a particular reason why, one of the reasons why I want to set up 2 for the Zerker especially. What I don't have in here right now that is, depending on the situation, I will add in there and take out. And before I just took out completely so I could try to be really simple and have it to just 1 bar. But now I do want that on the 2 bars here is some of the stuff that I have on burns here. So the Vehement Rage, your Spire, and your Juggernaut Surges. So these are more so burn type skills and abilities. They've got a recast of 6 minutes, 7.5, and Vehement is 5? Yep, 5 minutes there. This is stuff that just for normal grinding, not doing necessarily names, just sitting in a camp and maybe grinding just materials and things like that. These are ones that I would move over to here. Pop these in over here. And that way they're just always being spammed off whenever they pop up. And since they're staggered by about 1.5 minutes there, you tend to for the majority of an hour, you're going to have one of those up because they'll kind of just time off and stagger themselves there and just help just overall longer lasting duration DPS. But for the purpose of the majority of what I'm doing is missions. Or it's hey, this name is up, come here, can you help me burn this down real quick? I want that in that burn rotation so that it pops off there because I want to get the most out of humanly possible in 30 to 45 seconds. That's what you're seeing within these missions here, where you've got dragons where you want to slow DPS them, but then at a couple of points go mad crazy burn on ads, or if you're cheesing the high priest and just want massive burn there right from the start, it's always there, it's always up, just to help the Zerker who could reach 9 million DPS in a minute's short burst there. So one of the nice things about adding in a second hotbar is that gives me more of an option to add in those abilities, pop it in there, whereas opposed if I just had one, it would have to replace it and not just add it in there. Again, depending on what you're doing, you might want Vehement, Spire, and Savage, or not Savage, Juggernaut. You can probably toss Savage. That's 10 minutes, so somewhat semi-quicker there. But it gives you more that option to add additional stuff in there if you just want to maybe keep a better sustained DPS over, an hour long or multiple hours grinding, leveling kinds of things. So into the actual into the actual spams themselves and what we've got in there. The first 2 here, the Eviscerating Volley and then the Rending Axe Throw, are kind of just your bread and butter. They're 12-second recast. That's just what you want to make sure is being spammed off and hit as much as possible. I do have those on the top specifically because they share timers with 2 other abilities. So Eviscerating is timer 2, which is Jarring Crash over here. So Jarring Crash is is this the stun one, right? Yep, the stun one. Oh no, this one is the hatred one. That lowers your hatred by a huge chunk there. So they share a timer, so you can only click one or the other. The Eviscerating Volley does damage, and the Jarring Crash does not. So I don't want that in there for the vast majority of time. But if I am potentially just playing this character with another group and the tank maybe isn't that great, or leveling up another tank and need to worry about my aggro a little bit more and maybe lower my DPS, I can take this Jarring and just swap it out there real quick and easy. So that way, bam, I lower a little bit of DPS as well as get some good aggro modifying in there so that I'm not stealing aggro from a weaker tank. But for most raid situations and in just main group, he's never going to steal aggro from the SK, and even in a burn situation, I'm using Harm Touch and things like that. So no risk there to losing aggro, but it's there if I need to switch it. The other one here, Skull Strike, which shares the timer 10 here with the Rending Axe Throw there. Same situation, Rending does damage, Skull Strike does not, and they can only click one or the other. And the Skull Strike is the one that stuns your opponent. However, I don't think I've swapped that in there in literal years because most of the stuff is immune to stuns, and it doesn't do much good in group combat. I'd rather have the extra DPS to kill it quicker. And I think the only thing recently mechanic-wise that needed a stun was like the commander, and he was immune to ability stuns. Only spell stuns work. So, and it only works up to level 125. So this is, I don't know, for whatever reason, Dark Paw just wants to continue to keep that useless, even though they keep giving it to you every 5 levels, and it serves absolute zero purpose whatsoever. But it's there in case I ever need to. So yeah, I've got those 2 in there, and then the other set of stuff here, we'll go through here. I won't do like a whole lot of explaining what it does, but just the kind of stuff you want in there. So Eviscerating Frenzy, this one adds additional damage to your Frenzy attack, so always good to keep that up there. Keep that refreshed as often as possible. Axe Vorak is just another big hit of damage there. Braxy's Howl is a good one to pop on there. A lot of people probably don't do it with this, and because it looks more like it's an AE ability. It doesn't do any AE damage, but it puts a debuff on your target that will cause, we'll just hit the dummy here real quick, it causes the next up to like 110 hits or next minute to do more melee damage. So it just helps it's added DPS. So really solid there. Doesn't do any AE damage, so you don't got to worry about it like breaking mezzes or triggering stuff that you don't need it or want it to trigger. And it's just nice free extra boost of damage for everybody in the group there. Roiling Rage is just another one that just kind of gives you a chance to add an additional 2 attacks to all your melee hits there, so solid one to keep on. Intimidation is just like one of the regular action skills here. It doesn't do anything on its own, but as long as you have the AA here, it makes them take additional damage from Frenzy. There's a random chance for it, but it's pretty good. Like, it pretty much stays up like all the time. Reciprocal Rage is your progressive ability. Definitely want to keep that in there. Does a lot of damage. I know I talked a little bit about this in like the Beast Lord one, but if you're a little bit new to 125 and maybe not the best geared, maybe a little bit short on endurance and endurance regain, this can definitely drain you pretty quick. This character here is maybe about like 40% raid geared. He's got some spotty stuff, just doing some open raids, and I don't have any issues whatsoever running out of endurance, so I could use it. But if you ever do find yourself just draining in your endurance really, really quickly, it could potentially be this. What you would want to do there is just flip it out for like your level 116 one there, and you'll maybe sacrifice a little bit of DPS from this, but you won't be out of endurance so that you can't do anything with single skills. So in the long run, over several minutes, it'll help increase it. So potential thing just to take a look at there. The Phantom Assailant is just extra DPS that was at level 100 from Call of the Forsaken, I want to say. This just summons a little extra pet. If you do want to try to minimize this down to just one single hotbar, this is probably one of the first things to get rid of. The entire duration that it lasts, it only does about 45,000 damage. And in this day and age, that is like 0.00001% in like even trash mob fighting. So it's really not adding much. But if you've got the space for it, add it in there. It is also a swarm pet, so it helps magicians with their DPS. So easy one to get rid of if you need to. Keep it in there if you've got the space for it. Your Bane from this most recent expansion, self-explanatory. Draining Strikes is one that just helps if you get hit, and it gives you the ability to drain some endurance on you. Desperation is a nice one that can go within the burns there. The issue here is it lasts for 5 minutes, but it's on a 20-minute cooldown timer and gives you a pretty decent boost to your two-handed weapons. The overhaste is useless as long as you got a bard in your group because it doesn't increase your overhaste cap. and just will increase it by 25% up to your cap. And as long as you got a bard in your group, you're going to be at your 225. So if I was solo, like right now where I don't have anything going, like cool, that'll help me get up to 225, the max to it. But overall, because it's on such like a long cooldown here, like my regular burn is filled up, and I do not currently have the ability. Like I wouldn't be able to get rid of add like a hotbar 5 to it. So I've got it in there, but you could potentially swap it in and out there. So heightened frenzy and the preemptive ones here are ones that will only trigger if I'm at 90% or lower on health. That kind of help do a little bit of extra damage and absorb some damage here. So these are ones that I normally wouldn't have in there, but since I added a second bar, now I do. So kind of nice little perk there. So they'll only trigger if I'm getting lower on health there, or if I've got the I can't remember the name of the ability, one of these ones up here, which will lower your health by 30%. That'll kind of trigger it, but I usually don't play around with that one too much. With this expansion, there's so many big AEs that I just don't want to risk. I want to keep them at max health. And there's plenty of other stuff to click there. So the unthinking one here, this is just another one that like if I get, it puts a little bit of buff on me that if I get hit in combat, it will stun and give me endurance back. So just another little perk there. One that if you're trying to go just a single bar, isn't going to make a huge difference if you don't have that one in there. And then I've got my Epic, because Epic is on just a couple minute cooldown. Good to keep that going as much as possible. And the Epic is in the very bottom space there because item clickies and hotbar spams, anything that is after that click will not go off. So it's always got to be the last one. And because I have 2 bars, my first bar 6 and my second bar 7, it's at the end of 7. So if I were to take this and say put that there, anything, so now it's in the last spot of 6, anything in 7 is not going to ever trigger, as long as that is on a cooldown. So what I'll do is I'll toss this in 2 here to show you how that works. So it's in my main bar 2, which is hotbar 1, and I'll come up here, and I'll start spamming 2, and you'll see like the first click, a lot of stuff will go off because it's not on a cooldown. So stuff is going off, but now that they're on a cooldown, and you can probably hear me clicking, that's the number 2 key. Absolutely nothing is going off because this is blocking it, because it's the very first thing in its line. So I'm going to take this off of hotbar 1 and add it to the end of hotbar 7, and now start spamming 2, and everything is going off, except for the Bane, because obviously I don't have the effect on me, and these frenzies and preemptive here, because I'm not below 90% health. So yeah, that's just how those things work there. And nothing will trigger after an item on a cooldown in your hotbar sequence. So that's what I got at the main spam there on the number 2. And then number 3, I touched on this already, but just to go over it again, I don't have a hotbar dedicated to it, but I've got shared barbarism because this drains a little bit of extra endurance. So I'll click that just the once at the start of the fight with the 3 there, which will trigger like slows and debuffs and stuff like that. It's not going to work on my dummy here because he doesn't have a target for it, but that'll trigger it there at the start of the fight. And if a fight's longer, like 1 or 2 minutes, I'm usually kind of re-triggering it again after a minute or so. Because in my normal play, I don't have a shaman. I have just the Beast Lord slow, so that needs to be reapplied every little bit more often. So that will reapply itself. But this one here, you can add this into your main spam over here. We'll keep it refreshed every 30 seconds. But I try to save a little bit of endurance with that there and just only apply it at the start of the fight. 4, I've got nothing. 5, I've got nothing. I'm not going to go over the burn rotations. If you guys want to take a look at that, feel free. Take a look, see what's going on in there. If I could add a second bar there, I could add a few more things to that, but I do not have it in there. But then the number pad here, what I do have going on here, in spots 8 and 9. So let me open this back up here and I'll show you what that looks like. 8 here. So number pad obviously only has 1 through 9, and the hotbar has 12. So numbers 1 through 9 are just lined up 1 to 1. Numpad 1 is in hot button 1, 2, and 2, etc., etc. And then 10, 11, and 12 are tied to 9. So 9 is a little bit of a mini spam. And what I've got set up for that is AE stuff here. So I've got the, excuse me, Braxy's Howl in there. I've got the Rampages in there, and I've got the Vortex, the Vicious Vortex. So Vicious Vortex and Arc Slice can be swapped out for each other. They share a cooldown. Arc Slice only does, 4 targets on a much quicker cooldown, whereas Vicious does 12 targets on a minute-long cooldown. So depending on what you want to do, you could flip those in and out there. The few instances that I'm using it, I've got more than 4, and usually with the Rampage in there, that one big hit off of everything just kind of helps get stuff down much quicker there. So switch those in and out, how you feel there. And then I've also got 8 on there, which is the Devastating Assault, which kind of does the same thing as Rampage. So what I would do in a fight situation is, like, I would spam my 9 there to trigger all that kind of stuff. And then if it needs to like go longer when Rampage is done, like I can then hit 8, which will give me it again. And because I've got a couple of different Rampages in there, the Furious and regular Rampage, when one cools down the regular Rampage, like I could pop right into like a Furious Rampage, which is a little bit better but much longer cooldown there. So it just kind of gives me the ability to spam the 9 a couple of times if I need to. So some of the missions where maybe an earlier wave in the control room got a little bit out of hand, and I want to go through an AE burn there, and then again towards the end of the fight with later when I just want to kill stuff quick and just get the fight over with. It gives me a couple different options to increase AE burns there. So yeah, that is it. Again, we'll go over the actual burn rotation stuff there. Maybe do some other videos there just on like burn rotations. This isn't like very ideal for a Zerker for sustaining DPS. This is set up to get me the most humanly possible inside like 30 seconds to a minute. If I'm playing him solo and just maybe doing some raiding, I've got it all lined up here as well, so I'll more manage that individually. For what I know, just to create like a more 10-minute lasting DPS burn that will overall get better DPS in longer fights. But yeah, that's that. We'll go ahead, we'll cut this here. I'll get this uploaded and reach out if you got any questions.